Workshop with Reverend Marty Newman, and the amazing thing about Unity of Wilmington is that there were 50 people in this room out of a congregation of 150. That means a third of the people were actually in the room with Reverend Marty. So there are a few people who have already met her, and for the rest of you who are holding us in prayer, sending us your good thoughts, your good loving vibration, thank you, because I understand tremendously deep healing work was done. But for some of you, the first time of meeting Reverend Marty will be right now. She was ordained in 1994 by Unity Worldwide Ministries. She had a ministry in Kalamazoo, Michigan for 13 years, after which she retired from field ministry and went into the profession of supporting and loving and helping other Unity communities bloom and grow through her transition work, through her healing work, and through her ministry skills work. So we are very, very blessed to welcome Reverend Marty Newman today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm so happy to be with you today, and I'm so grateful for the time that we had yesterday. We did come together yesterday and recognize who we are as a spiritual community, who we are as the tribe of Unity of Wilmington. That group of people came up with several things that they believe it would serve this spiritual community for the board to begin to focus on in terms of shifting some consciousness. And so they will be making some choices and some decisions about those and be communicating with you about what those steps might be. We had a great day yesterday. It was a great participation, and I'm very honored to be here with you and with Mindy, and I just have enjoyed being here so very much, so I thank you for that. So speaking of tribes, how many of you growing up weren't quite sure that you belonged, perhaps even in your family? You know, maybe you didn't feel like you belonged at school. You weren't quite, you know, like, how did I get here? Anybody besides me feel like that? You didn't quite belong? And then one of the things that we often hear about people coming into Unity is that when you come into Unity, you feel like you have come home. You had that experience? And what I know is we sometimes tend to connect that with perhaps the person who was speaking, or who was here at the time, or maybe even the place, the particular sanctuary or building where that occurred. And what I know about that for myself and in others, and what I want you to acknowledge is that experience for you was coming home to yourself. It's our coming home to ourself, to recognizing and knowing somehow, to whatever degree we can, that we are one with the source of all that is. One with the source of all that is. So when I came out of pretty rigid, pretty severe fundamentalist Christianity into Unity, I had several events in my life that just broke me open, and out of desperation, I left the church when I was in my early 20s. Didn't go at all, and in my mid-30s then found Unity and realized that it matched what my thinking had evolved into. But I was a little distressed, I have to tell you, and I didn't like it, because where I went to Unity Temple on the plaza at the time, it was called Unity Society for Practical Christianity. I didn't like that Christianity part. I grew up in it, and I didn't like it. And I struggled with that. And I wondered, why was it that the Fillmores, who are co-founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who studied all of the world's religions and all kinds of other things in the middle 1800s, when Unity was established, the isms that were around in the spiritual milieu at the time was very much like we've been experiencing for the last couple of decades. And they studied all of the Eastern religions and in fact incorporated many of those practices into our Unity practices. Charles Fillmore said that life is an ever upward spiraling, ever evolving spiral of consciousness. Let me say that, see if I can remember how to say that right. He said that life is an ever upward spiral of evolving consciousness. So I began to look at the Christian teachings, and what I was thinking about at the time is Christianity, for that upward spiral of consciousness that he talked about. And realized that it wasn't in Christianity, those traditions that were established in the 3rd and 4th century under Constantine, after Jesus had long gone, but in the teachings of Jesus. So I wanted to find, well, what are the teachings of Jesus that were an ever upward spiral of consciousness? And this is what seemed evident to me after doing a fair amount of research. The 5 evolved teachings of Jesus, and maybe there are more, but these I recognize, are forgiveness, equality, healing, abundance, and God within. Now, in terms of forgiveness, remember he was living at a time when eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth was the common practice and the belief. So what did Jesus say to the Pharisees who brought the woman who was taken in adultery? She broke the law. She was caught in breaking the law. The law says she's to be stoned to death. And he said, let him without sin cast the first stone. That was a tribe close enough probably that they knew one another had committed sins. And they all slunk away. What did he say when Peter said, so, how many times do I have to forgive my brother? 7 times? Have you had a brother that you've had to forgive a whole lot? Jesus said, oh no, 70 times 7. Infinite, without end, always, never taking offense in the first place. Always forgiveness. None of this eye for an eye stuff. Not about getting back. It is about forgiveness. When it comes to equality, Jesus was extraordinary in his teachings for his time. You may remember that the Samaritans, who lived primarily in the northern part of Israel, were left from the diaspora, the Jewish diaspora, earlier on. And they had remained there and had intermarried and used and followed many of the practices that the Jewish people in Jerusalem considered idolatrous and pagan. And they were considered absolutely worthless. They were considered untouchable. You didn't talk to them, you didn't look at them, you didn't eat with them, you didn't have anything at all to do with them. They weren't even considered human. Yet Jesus, in Samaritan country, sat at the well, and when the woman who came to the well was a woman who even in Samaritan society was considered a lowlife, he talked with her. He took water from her hand, and he blessed her and opened her consciousness to a new life within her. When the Pharisees asked, when Jesus said, love your neighbor, and the Pharisees said, who is my neighbor? He told the story about the Jewish man who was struck by robbers and left to die on the road. And a Samaritan, whom that Jewish man would have had nothing to do with, came along, took pity on him, took him into town, took care of him, and paid for his long-term care. Whereas the Jewish priest and the Levite, who had passed him earlier before, had left him laying there without any compassion, pity. He also, it's very clear, although much of it is redacted from scriptures, it's very clear that in the early church and in Jesus' teachings and in Jesus' milieu, that women were highly respected and were regarded as prophets, teachers, and preachers and leaders of those communities. So there was a huge change in the understanding of equality that came into our consciousness with Jesus' teachings. And And let's talk about healing. There have always been people who have been talented with healing and healers of various sorts. We have many people who still do healing work. You probably have people in your community who do healing work. At that time, people who were considered healers, it was their business. That's the way they made their living, just like doctors make their living now. And people went to them and they paid them. So they wanted credit for it and they wanted money for it. Jesus did neither. Not only would he not take any credit, he certainly would not take any money. And so when anyone said to him, will you heal me? Or will you heal me? What was his question? Do you want to be healed? What do you believe? Can you heal me? He would say, if you believe. In other words, the cause for the source is absolutely within our belief about it. Very new look at healing. And then abundance. He was living in a time when it was considered that the only people who really were the righteous people and the people who would quote, have a good life afterwards, go to heaven, whatever their concept of that was at the time, and it varied, but that only the rich could do that. There were so many Jewish laws that if you had to operate a normal life, go to work and take care of a family and do, kids and do laundry and the stuff that you have to do, get food together, you didn't have time to do that. So all of these people who were just the average person was just like, what's the point? I can't possibly have a right relationship with God because I can't follow all of those rules. And Jesus said, oh no, that is not what it's about. That the rain falls and the sun shines on the righteous and the unrighteous. God is no respecter of persons. We are all equal here, and we are all the beloved. We are all equal. He also taught that we are equal with him. We know that in the Christian church they taught many things, which we do not teach in Unity. We do not teach that God is a superhuman being in the sky who intervenes in our life. We do not teach that Jesus was the only Son of God. We teach that he was our teacher and our way shower, and he was just like us. Jesus' story is our story. Every time a child is born, it is born in original blessing. And angels sing, and people come and bring them gifts and rejoice in their birth. And we are all born with an original blessing, just like Jesus. Jesus was not a different species from us. He was a human being who grew into and realized his own potential, his own godness. And then, and in terms of abundance, he also said, as far as I know, it's the first time anybody ever said it, it is God's good pleasure to give you every good thing. And then oneness, God within, Spirit within. Jesus said, the things that I do, you shall do also. The I am that I am, the essence that we are, that we teach the Spirit in and through us, is that Godness. And one of the other things I loved about Charles Fillmore is his fascination with science, how much he loved science and pursued science, and how much we're learning from science now about the very things that we've been teaching for a long time. The brain science, it teaches us that elevated thoughts light up your brain in healthy ways. We have scans that prove that. And he pursued science, and now we know from Einstein. Einstein said, energy is all there is. We are all energy. Align yourself with the energy of the thing you want, and you cannot help but receive it. And so we are not separate human beings. We are all one. We are one. And this thing that we call God, which is a German translation, when St. Boniface went to Germany, they would say, what do you call this? And he'd say, oh, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. His German wasn't very good, it's good. So that's where the word God comes from. So the German translators made it into God. That God is not separate from us, and it is this energy in and through us, in and through everything. So each one of us is the particle in the wave of energy in this human form right now, wherever we are. We're the particle taking place in this wave of energy. We've come into being in this, and what we feel in and through us us when we experience our oneness, we experience that presence of God, is our aligning with that energy of goodness, that energy of divine goodness in and through us. And when we are connected with that, on that energy stream comes to us everything we need to know. Any person that can support whatever it is we have an intention about, whatever it is, whatever energy we are putting out, is what we attract to us. Now sometimes that sounds really intellectual and not very spiritual. We're energy, we're science, it's all about science. And science is essential, but it's not sufficient. And here's the thing I love, and it is the enduring mystery. That no matter how much we try to figure it out, we absolutely can't do that. Science is looking for it, and I love it that it does, but we still cannot identify the source. That source, that how where energy begins, it never begins and it never ends. It just is. It runs through us all the time. And how amazing it is when we look at these pictures from the Hubble telescope and we see this same energy out there in the universe manifesting in such amazing ways that we can look at right now. And how wonderful it is that on this planet we live here and we have friends and family and loved ones and food and shelter. And how can we not just be overwhelmed with the awesomeness of that? That we are so very, very blessed. Carl Sagan, some of you may remember, he sort of brought science to the common man through television. But he was a well-known and avowed atheist. Yet Carl Sagan was gobsmacked with the awesomeness of the universe. And he said, we're made of star stuff. All of the elements, the minerals, the molecules, all of those things that are out there in the universe are in our bodies. It's what coalesced in this energy to make this particle on the wave. It's amazingly awesome. Just amazingly awesome. I'm so grateful. I'm always so grateful. When I pray and I meditate, then I get in touch with that very central core of me. I get in touch with the real me that I am. That is the Godness. That is I am. The Godness that is you are. That you are one with God. You're not separate from God. You can never be separated from God except in your thoughts. And so it is our thinking that we do. And then we pray knowing that we're not talking to God and we're not trying to change God's mind, but we're in prayer to change our own minds. We're in prayer to affirm the truth of our own being, to affirm the truth that we know, to stabilize our own elevated thinking so that we're living in that space and in the presence of all is well. Unity is my tribe. I have family, of course. I love them. But I have to say that unity is my tribe. And it was such an awesome thing to be here with you yesterday. You worked so hard because you love this spiritual community. And it is the love for that spiritual community that can keep you together, and is the mission of this spiritual community to continue to make sure that we are spreading the word so that all people are awakened to their oneness with God, whatever they may call it, with one another and with all of creation. Unity is my tribe. I love my Unity tribe. Thank you for being part of my Unity tribe and allowing me to join you this weekend. God bless us, everyone.
going to invite you to allow that remembrance that you are stardust to wash over you, to let the love that Unity of Wilmington has to offer to wash over you as we sing our way into meditation.